If there's one coaster out there that truly lives up to its name, it's gotta be Insane at Gröna Lund. Insane is the 4D coaster located at this park right in central Stockholm, and was also their first of their current inverting rides. It's known to be super intense and a lot of people love it, others are just not really a fan of it, which makes sense because this can give very different rides. It's a very polarizing coaster. I rode it in September of 2022 for the first time, and I'm gonna review it today for you guys, starting off with some technical shit.
Please don't make the super suit green or animated.
So Insane is an infamous Intamin Zac Spin. Specifically the 32-meter layout, the only clone of Insane is Green Lantern First Flight, which was supposed to be Vipere.
That was close.
And that coaster is known to be one of the biggest pieces of trash in the world. Luckily, Insane doesn't share that same awful reputation, and outside of that model, there are only two others of the Zac Spins, which are Kierno and Inferno. And generally, the Zac Spin is the predecessor to the SNS 4D Freespin. It opened in 2009, and it features these odd 8-rider cars with 4 rows over 2 wings. This basically is a wing coaster of some sort, and you can either go forwards or backwards, but of course, because of how the layout is, you will go both forwards and backwards. Regarding the comfort in these trains, you have these very big and soft over-the-shoulder restraints similar to maybe Maverick, I guess? They're the classic Intamin over-the-shoulder lap bar things where you just have a lot of padding, and you definitely need that padding for your shoulders. So the comfort is actually very good considering how intense this ride is. It's 108.3 feet tall, which is one of the tallest coasters in the park. It is the one that looks the tallest as well, but Monster is slightly taller, it's just partially underground.
No, don't be afraid of me.
It's 810.4 feet long, obviously not very long, but this is a 4D coaster, so what do you expect? And it goes 34.2 miles an hour, and considering how intense it is, I'm pretty happy it doesn't go any faster, honestly. It's got a prime ride time duration of 31 seconds, which is short for sure, but you don't need it to be any longer in my opinion. And regarding the number of inversions, I've said it's got 4 inversions because I count 4 Raven turns. Obviously this isn't the amount of times you actually go upside down, it's just the amount of times that I know that the track inverts.
Oh, you look nervous. Is it the scars?
Now, Insane looks very imposing from the water. I've always arrived at Gröna Lund by ferry, and you sail right past Insane and Monster, and it looks really great. It's a very weird and funky visual to look at this ride, and it's a great ride to look at. Not only that, but it's also very fun to watch and to see how much people spin. Plus, the white and purple color scheme mixed with the green station is a very great mix. It lives up to its name, and it definitely looks like something out of an insane asylum. Insane certainly has one of the most unique presentations of any coaster I've ever seen, and it is a great blast to just look at and watch. When it comes to the layout, the forces that you will experience and how they will feel will obviously depend on the spin. Sometimes you may be heading upside down into a valley and sometimes not, and how that valley feel greatly depends on the spin. But the layout itself starts out with a vertical lift hill that kind of inverts, then you have a small dip and a small ascent. You're not gonna feel anything here, nor in the straight section. This dip does give you your first taste of how the ride actually feels. The spin itself, which is of course not centered around the riders themselves, that first feel for the ride is also part of why the anticipation really goes up for how the rest of the ride is going to feel. Because as soon as you head into the first Raven turn, you are blasted with positive forces and longitude forces for that matter. You are thrown very harshly either forwards or backwards depending on which side you're facing, while you're also getting very harshly pushed into your seat downwards. The forces on this Raven turn, and actually much of the rest of the ride as well, are very sudden. They are extremely strong forces and they hit you within a millisecond. It hits you like a truck. After the Raven turn is a small bunny hill, which actually gives some pretty fun floater airtime. Then you hop into the next Raven turn, which is much larger. The hop into it also gives a fun little floater airtime pop, and just like the first Raven turn, this big one is also super forceful. Very hardcore positive forces and very hardcore forwards or backwards forces. Now, if you're upright, these Raven turns feel awesome. Wow. But if you have your head upside down, which certainly can happen, your head is not gonna have a very fun time. It is not fun being upside down in these Raven turns, so be aware of that. After this Raven turn is a small ascent into the mid-course brake run. This ascent also gives a fun, quick floater airtime pop, and then you head into the next Raven turn. Once again, you're gonna feel a little bit of airtime heading into it, just like you are on the first one, that of course being floater airtime, and then the Raven turn, just like the first one, is super intense regarding longitude and positive forces. It's the exact same story. Then you hop into another big Raven turn that is also similar to the first one, floater airtime at first, and then hardcore positive and longitude forces. This is also the biggest valley and where I felt like you had the biggest opportunity of being upside down in the valley, which sucks. After all, Villas here does not look like a happy boy at all, but I can tell you this is a very long and sustained moment of hardcore G-forces. After the big valley, you then have the finale with a top hat. I classify this as a top hat because look at it. And here you're almost always guaranteed to flip upside down. Depending on the spin, you can actually get a pretty fun ejector airtime moment here, and it is serious ejector as well. In fact, there are some other moments as well throughout the ride where you would usually get floater airtime that can deliver ejector depending on the spin. The spin can really change the forces on this ride. But here you most likely will do an entire flip upside down, and as you can see here, I also hit the brakes upside down, which is not too comfortable for my head. But after the brake run, you flip upright, head into the next brakes a little quick, and that's the end of the ride. So yeah, Insane is a super intense ride. The spin can change your experience quite a lot. It can give you floater, ejector, hardcore positive forces, exploding heads. This ride is no joke.
And here we go.
Regarding the pacing, it's a fun thing to talk about on Insane because it starts off slow, but that is where the anticipation is just huge and it's a very tense moment. On my first ride, I was scared before hitting the first Raven turn, so this is not a boring straight section at all. Then from there, it just hits hard all the way through the entire layout. It is not let up, it is hella intense and super fun all the way through, start to finish. There's only one break in the pacing throughout the ride itself, which is the mid-course brake run, but trust me, that is a well-deserved break and a blessing.
A blessing from the Lord.
Because it's a great opportunity to catch your breath, which you need to do most of the time.
I don't feel so good.
But generally, the pacing fits the kind of ride pretty well.
It makes not one bit of difference to how you feel.
Insane is a generally smooth coaster. Obviously, there are no turns or curves of any kind, so getting rough transitions or headbanging or anything of that sort is next to impossible. There are some small amounts of shuffling throughout the ride, similar to some other older Intamins, but it's a generally smooth ride. There's no need for concern on this ride regarding smoothness. You don't even think about how smooth it is doing the ride. You have much bigger concerns regarding bracing yourself, which is bracing yourself for the forces, not headbanging.
Can you introduce me as Joker?
What's wrong with your real name?
The theme of Insane is straight up just insanity. It has very minimal theming, there's not really a lot. Most of it is just right in the station and especially the queue line, but the colors of the ride itself is also part of the theming, and the ride just gives a massive Joker vibe, with the colors and especially also the posters and comic book-like theming in the queue line.
Then why do you dress up like him?
But other than that, there's really not any theming to talk about. It's very little, but the theming that is there is pretty fun and fits the coaster very well.
I'm an agent of chaos.
Overall, Insane absolutely lives up to the name 100%. This is a super intense ride, and it might just be the most extreme coaster I've ever ridden regarding positive G-forces and pure intensity. It's very hard to judge that exactly because of the nature of a 4D coaster like this, where you simply don't experience the forces like you do on any other coaster. This ride feels very unique as opposed to a normal sit-down roller coaster, and that's also seen in how greatly the spin affects your ride experience. The spin can either ruin or make your ride, and I experienced both parts. But even the best rides weren't necessarily my favorites ever, because the comfort still overall isn't the best on Insane. The G-forces even can be a bit uncomfortable in themselves, but I think Insane deserves a 7 out of 10. I like this coaster. I got some great rides on it, but I also got a bad ride on it, although I did not get the worst ride that day. Generally, I am very mixed on Insane. It's certainly not a favorite of mine, and I don't like the risk of getting a bad ride since the bad rides really suck. but the good rides are also fucking fire. It kind of reminds me of Tornado at Bagan, which can also give some awesome rides, but also some really horrible rides, all depending on the spin. So while Insane is not one of my favorite rides, it was still a blast when it was riding really well. It was a very surprisingly intense coaster. I liked it more than I originally thought I was gonna. It can still be insanely fun. It's super intense. It's not the most comfortable, but it still very much delivers. Let me know what you think of Insane or Green Lantern or any of the other Zac Spins out there. Are you one of the people who really like this coaster, or do you absolutely hate these things? I'd love to know your thoughts, so let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, thanks for watching and bye!